Venus Williams breaks down. The emotional moment she celebrates Coco Gauff's rise to number one. It was one of those nights that felt larger than tennis, a moment suspended between past and present, between legacy and destiny. When Coco Gauff officially rose to world number one, the youngest American to reach the top since Serena Williams, the tennis world erupted in celebration. But no reaction captured the heart of the moment more than that of Venus Williams. The pioneer who once opened the door, Coco now walks through. What started as a congratulatory tribute quickly turned into a raw, emotional scene that reminded the world of the bond between two generations. One that began with inspiration and culminated in poetic triumph. A night of triumph and tears. The setting was the WTA's annual Champions Gala in Monaco, an elegant affair filled with the sport's brightest stars. The event was meant to honor the 2025 season's best performers, with Coco Gauff's ascent to world number one as the centerpiece of the night. At just 21, Gauff had done the unthinkable. Conquered a season that included 2 Grand Slam finals, a WTA Finals title defense, and unmatched consistency on every surface. The crowd rose to its feet when her name was announced. Coco Gauff, world number one. But the true surprise came moments later. The organizers had secretly invited Venus Williams to deliver a special tribute, something Gauff herself didn't know was coming. As Venus walked onto the stage, the audience erupted. Dressed in a sleek black gown, her posture regal yet her eyes soft, Venus looked both proud and nostalgic. When she reached the microphone, she smiled gently and said, "I came here tonight not as a legend, not as a veteran, but as someone who once dreamed that this day would come for someone like her." The room fell silent. What followed was one of the most moving speeches tennis has ever witnessed. Venus's voice trembles. She did what we dreamed of. Venus began by recounting her first memory of seeing Coco play. "She was just 15, Venus said softly, and she stood across the net from me at Wimbledon, fearless, focused, with those big eyes full of belief. I remember thinking, she reminds me of me." The crowd smiled, remembering that 2019 Wimbledon match, when a teenage Coco stunned the world by defeating Venus in straight sets. But Venus continued, her voice trembling slightly. "People talk about that match like it was a loss for me," she said. "But I never saw it that way. It was a beginning. It was a torch being passed, not dropped." Then, pausing to wipe a tear, she added, "Coco didn't take my place. She expanded it. She showed that our legacy wasn't a finish line. It was a runway." The room burst into applause. Coco, seated near the front, covered her mouth as tears began to form in her eyes. Venus smiled through her own. "And tonight, seeing her as world number one, it's everything we fought for. Everything Serena and I dreamed of when we were little girls hitting balls on crack courts in Compton. She is the proof that our story mattered." The flashback, a private conversation revealed. Venus then shared a moment the world had never heard before, a private conversation she'd had with Coco after that first Wimbledon match. "After we walked off court, I found her in the hallway," Venus said. "She was shy, almost apologetic. She said, 'I'm sorry, I didn't mean to beat you.' The audience chuckled gently. And I told her, 'Never apologize for winning. One day, you'll understand what it means to see someone rise higher because you once opened a door.'" Venus paused, her eyes glistening. "And now, she is number one in the world. And I finally understand what that moment was really for." The cameras caught Gauff whispering, "Thank you," as tears rolled down her cheeks. The emotional break, Venus can't hold back. As the audience gave a standing ovation, Venus tried to continue, but her voice broke. "I've had so many moments in my career," she said, her tone shaking. "Wins, losses, triumphs, heartbreaks, but none of it compares to this. Watching someone I once inspired, someone who looked at me and said, 'I can do that too,' now inspiring millions more. That's what greatness really looks like." The words hung in the air like a prayer. Venus took a deep breath, then covered her face briefly with her hand, fighting to keep her composure. Coco stood from her seat and walked onto the stage, embracing Venus as the crowd erupted once again. It was more than a hug. It was a generational embrace between a woman who paved the road and the young champion who now drives the future forward. Venus whispered something in Coco's ear that the microphones didn't catch, but later, Gauff revealed what it was. She told me, "Keep going, your story just began." Coco's response, "You're the reason I believed." After the applause subsided, Gauff took the microphone. Her voice quivered at first, then steadied with emotion. "I've dreamed of this moment my whole life," she said. "But what means more than this trophy, more than this ranking, is knowing that I got here walking a path that you built, Venus." She turned toward Venus, her eyes filled with gratitude. "When I was 10, I watched a YouTube video of you at Wimbledon. I didn't know what strategy was. I didn't even understand the rules fully, but I knew one thing. I wanted to be that brave." The crowd murmured softly, hanging on every word. "People always call me the future of tennis," she continued. "But the truth is, I'm the future that Venus dreamed of, a symbol beyond tennis." Analysts and fans quickly agreed. This was more than a celebration of a ranking. It was a cultural milestone. Venus Williams had once broken barriers for race, gender, and equality in sports. Coco Gauff's rise represented the next evolution, a generation raised by those victories, now creating their own. Sports historian Dr. Elaine Morris wrote in Sports Illustrated, "When Venus fought for equal pay at Wimbledon in 2007, she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for Coco Gauff and every young woman who would follow. Tonight, that fight came full circle. The candle of legacy." As the event ended, Venus and Coco were given a small symbolic gift, a dual-flame candle, inscribed with the words "Legacy Shared." Venus lit the first wick, then handed the lighter to Coco, who lit the second. The two flames burned side by side, separate yet inseparable. Coco looked at the flickering light and whispered, "It's your flame that made mine possible." Venus smiled and replied, "Then promise me, never let it go out." The final words, "a torch eternal." As they exited the stage arm in arm, the audience knew they were witnessing more than tennis history. They were witnessing the continuation of a movement, because Venus Williams didn't just see Coco Gauff's rise as a new chapter. She saw it as fulfillment of a lifelong mission, to prove that greatness, once shared, never fades. And Coco, standing atop the world at number one, understood the weight and beauty of that gift. "Venus gave me more than inspiration," she said later. "She gave me permission to dream, to fail, to rise, to lead. And I'll carry that forever." That night, two generations stood as one. The pioneer and the prodigy. The dreamer and the dream come true. And as Venus Williams wiped away her final tears, she smiled, because the world she once imagined had finally arrived. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like, and share. Till next time.